Here is something nobody wants to admit at a wedding. Love is an economy. Not just an economy, not merely a transaction, but an economy nonetheless. When you stood there, heart racing, palms sweating, finally working up the courage to say, I love you, you were not just expressing emotion, you were making an investment. You were entering a market. You were calculating, whether you knew it or not, what you were gaining and what you were offering in return. Her beauty will reflect on me. His intelligence will elevate me. Their youth validates me. Their status protects me. We don't say those things out loud. We dress them up in poetry and passion. We speak of soulmates and serendipity, of love at first sight and meant to be. But beneath every you complete me lies a more uncomfortable truth. You complete my portfolio of social capital. This is not cynicism, this is honesty. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The wedding announcements in the New York Times start reading like merger and acquisition deals. The celebrity couple on the red carpet becomes a walking corporate partnership. Your friend's new relationship suddenly makes sense in ways they had never admit and they would never admit. He needed someone organized. She needed someone spontaneous. He brought the apartment, she brought the social life, the books, balance. But here is what makes this fascinating rather than depressing. The best love stories are not the ones that escape this economy, they are the ones that transform it. They are the ones where two people enter as traders and emerge as alchemists, turning the base metal of transaction into the gold of genuine transformation. So let's dive deep. Let's examine the hidden ledgers of love. Let's explore the currencies we trade, the exchanges we negotiate, and the ways relationships can either trap us in extraction or liberate us into genuine mutual becoming. Because if you're going to play this game, and we are, whether we admit it or not, we might as well understand the rules. Let's start with the most obvious currency beauty. Right now, someone is swiping left on their soulmate because they are half an inch too short. Someone else is staying in a miserable relationship because their partner is hot enough to make their friends jealous. A teenager is developing an eating disorder because they have internalized that their romantic market value depends on their waist circumference. Beauty isn't just aesthetic pleasure, it is leverage. Think about it. Why does every authoritarian leader's mistress look like a supermodel? Why did Henry VIII court painters carefully enhance the attractiveness of potential brides? Why did tech billionaires in Silicon Valley suddenly start appearing at events with women who look like Instagram came to life? Because beauty is transferable status. It is social currency that spends well at dinner parties and board meetings. at family reunions and industry conferences. Here is a brutal historical example. Catherine de' Medici wasn't beautiful by Renaissance standards, but she brought something better: Florentine wealth and cultural sophistication. She married Henri II of France and transformed herself into one of the most powerful women in European history. But even she understood the game. She staffed the court with beautiful women who served as both spies and ambassadors, wielding their appearance as political weapons. Fast forward to today, Mark Zuckerberg isn't conventionally beautiful. Priscilla Chan is beautiful, yes, but she brought something more: a medical degree, a career serving low income children, moral authority that softens his robotic tech bro image. At their wedding, he didn't just marry a person, he acquired a humanizing PR strategy. The exchange was mutual. She gained access to world historical wealth and the ability to direct billions towards a philanthropic vision. Their partnership works because the ledger balances. But here is where it gets darker. Beauty has an expiration date. Women know this viscerally. Society reminds them constantly. The entire anti aging industry, worth over $60 billion annually, exists because women understand that their primary currency in the romantic marketplace depreciates over time. Every wrinkle is a loss of equity, every gray hair is a decline in stock value. Men trade in different currencies that tend to appreciate wealth, power, status. A 55-year-old male CEO is considered distinguished. A 55-year-old actress is considered aging out of leading roles. The cruelty is structural, not personal. And the most insidious part, we have all internalized it so deeply that when we see a beautiful young woman with a wealthy older man, our first thought isn't that is an explicit exchange of beauty for resources. Our first thought is she must really love him, or he must have a great personality. The lie protects the system, doesn't it? Now let's talk about the second currency: intelligence. Remember your first intellectual crush? The person in class who said something so insightful that you felt your world crack open. The colleague who made you feel stupid and aroused in equal measure. The partner who introduced you to authors and ideas that changed how you see everything. That is not just attraction, that is capital transfer. Academia is filled with these relationships. The brilliant graduate student who falls for their advisor, the junior professor who partners with the department chair. These aren't accidents, they are exchanges. Proximity to knowledge confers authority. Being chosen by intelligence validates your own intellectual legitimacy. Think about Simone de Beauvoir and Jean Paul Sartre. We romanticize their relationships as a meeting of equals, a partnership of two philosophical titans. But read the letters, read the biographies. Beauvoir spent decades being introduced as Sartre's companion despite being arguably the more innovative thinker. She provided intellectual labor, emotional support, and editorial insight that shaped his work. He provided institutional legitimacy and philosophical credibility that opened doors for her. The exchange was real and it was unequal. Or consider the corporate power couple. The venture capitalist married to the tech founder. Their pillow talk is insider trading. Their dinner parties are networking events. Each partner's career accelerates because they are essentially running a 2% intelligence agency, pulling proprietary knowledge that neither could access alone. Their children will inherit not just money but fluency in coding and cap tables, in disruption and deal flow. They'll speak the language of power as their native tongue. This is how class reproduces itself, not through explicit conspiracy, but through intimate exchanges of knowledge capital that accumulate across generations. But here is the beautiful part: knowledge, unlike beauty, can be genuinely shared. When I teach you something, I don't lose it. When we think together, we create insight neither of us could generate alone. The exchange can be genuinely multiplicative. Marie and Pierre Curie discovered radium together. Maybrit and Edward Moser shared the Nobel Prize for their collaborative neuroscience. These aren't zero-sum extractions. These are partnerships where 1 plus 1 equals something greater than 2. The question is, how many relationships actually achieve that? And how many are just one person slowly draining the other's intellectual vitality while calling it love? And now we arrive at the most uncomfortable currency of all: youth itself. Picture this: a 60-year-old Hollywood director at a party with his 23-year-old girlfriend. Everyone can see exactly what is happening. She's trading her youth, her beauty, her sexual availability for access to industry connections, financial security, and mentorship. He is trading his wealth, his power, his status for the validation that comes from being desired by someone whose entire life is still ahead of her. The exchange is so obvious, it's almost boring. Except it's not boring to them. He genuinely believes she loves him for his mind, his experience, his sophistication. And she genuinely believes the relationship is about more than advancement. They are both lying to themselves because the truth that they are engaged in a fairly explicit exchange would poison the intimacy they are trying to create. Here is what makes youth such potent currency: it's literally irreplaceable. You can earn more money, you can acquire more knowledge, you can even, with enough surgery, simulate beauty, but you cannot backbite time. To be chosen by youth is to temporarily defeat mortality itself. Woody Allen understood this. Every new young partner was evidence that he remained vital, relevant, desirable. Never mind that the power dynamics were grotesque. Never mind that Sunvi Perrin was his longtime partner's adopted daughter. The transactional logic was clear. Her youth redeemed his aging, and his cultural capital provided her escape and elevation. Society enables this because we are trained to see older men's desire for younger women as natural, biological, even admirable. Still gets it, we say, approvingly when an aging actor appears with a girlfriend young enough to be his daughter. But flip the scripts. Emmanuel Macron's marriage to Brigitte, his former teacher 24 years his senior, provoked international scandal. Why? Because she was supposed to be the one desperately clinging to youth, not him. She was supposed to be trading her depreciated beauty for his rising status, not the reverse. The exchange didn't follow the scripts. so society short circuited. But here is the really insidious part. The youth economy creates its own demand. The more society tells women their value expires at 35, the more 35-year-old women panic and settle for suboptimal partnerships. The more it tells men they become more attractive with age, the more 55-year-old men feel entitled to 25-year-old partners. The beliefs shape the markets, and the market reinforces the beliefs. But there are counter examples. Relationships where the exchange of youth and experience becomes genuinely mutual learning, where the older partner offers wisdom without condescension and the younger partner offers vitality without naivety, where the age gap becomes a bridge rather than an exploitation zone. These exist. They are just much rarer than we pretend. Let's talk about a currency nobody acknowledges: social grace. You know that couple where one person is charismatic and outgoing and the other is awkward and anxious? That's not just complementary personality traits, that is an exchange. The socially adept partner provides access to friendship networks, ease at parties, the ability to navigate professional events without embarrassment. The awkward partner provides what exactly? Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's stability, sometimes it's intellectual depth that makes private conversations fascinating even if public ones are painful. The exchange is often invisible to the couple themselves, but watch them at a party. Watch how one translates the other to the social world, how they create a buffer zone of acceptability around their partner's social deficits. Mark Zuckerberg is a perfect case study. He is legendarily awkward. The robot comparisons, the weird BBQ smoke meat face, the congressional testimonies where he seemed barely human. But Priscilla provides social credibility. Her medical career, her work with underserved communities, her warmth in public appearances, she makes him legible as something other than a sociopathic tech overload. He needed her humanity. She gained the power to direct billions toward causes she cares about. The book's balanced. Some people are emotionally fluent. They can name feelings, navigate conflicts, maintain relationships with extended family, remember birthdays, sense when something is wrong, and actually ask about it. These people are gold in the romantic marketplace. Other people are emotional black holes. They can't identify their own feelings, let alone yours. They avoid conflict until it explodes. They'll forget their own mother's birthday without calendar reminders. They are successful, accomplished, intelligent, but emotionally they are operating at fifth grade level. These people desperately need emotional translators, partners who will manage the entire affective dimension of life while they focus on careers, hobbies, and intellectual pursuits. This is the classic behind every great man is a great woman dynamic, except we are finally starting to name what that woman is actually doing: massive amounts of uncompensated emotional labor. She's remembering to call his mother. She is maintaining friendships he had let atrophy. She is initiating the difficult conversations about their relationship. She's teaching their children about feeling while he teaches them about facts. She's creating the emotional infrastructure that allows him to focus entirely on external achievement. What does she get in return? Financial security, often, social status, the reflected glory of his success, and sometimes, if she's lucky, genuine appreciation for her contributions. But often she gets something more subtle: the satisfaction of being needed, The identity of being the person who holds everything together, the sense of moral superiority that comes from being the more emotionally evolved partner. These are real forms of payments, but they are not equal to what she is providing. Virginia Woolf understood this perfectly. In A Room of One's Own, she imagined Shakespeare's equally talented career and asked why we don't know her name. The answer: she spent all her genius supporting her husband and sons, managing the emotional and domestic life that freed them to create art. The tragedy isn't that she wasn't talented, it's that her talent was extracted and rendered invisible by a system that called it love. Here's an uncomfortable fact. For most of human history, women's primary value in the marriage market was their ability to produce children, preferably sons. We like to think we've moved past this. Well, we haven't. We've just made it more subtle. Women still face the biological clock in ways men don't. The panic that starts around 30 intensifies at 35, becomes desperate at 40. The sense that their reproductive capital is depreciating and they need to find a partner now before their value drops too far. This isn't biological destiny, this is cultural programming designed to maintain a specific economy of exchange. Men, meanwhile, can theoretically produce into their 70s. Their reproductive timeline is much more forgiving, which gives them leverage in relationship negotiations. How many women have settled for mediocre partners because they wanted children and time was running out? How many men have extracted years of relationship labor from partners they never intended to commit to, knowing the woman's clock gave them negotiating power? The entire economy is designed to create desperation on one side and complacency on the other. And it works brilliantly, cruelly, efficiently. Now let's talk about relationships that are pure extraction. The narcissist seeks partners who provides endless validation, admiration, emotional labor, and forgiveness for bad behavior. In exchange, they offer the privilege of their presence, the occasional moment of charm, the hope that someday, if you just love them hard enough, they'll finally give you what you need. This is the most lopsided exchange imaginable. One person's entire emotional reserves are drained to fill a void that cannot be filled. The narcissist is a black hole, pulling everything toward themselves while offering nothing that sustains. And here is the truly sinister part: they are often brilliant at the initial exchange. They offer intense attention, passionate promises, mirroring that makes you feel seen and understood in ways you've never experienced. The exchange seems spectacularly weighted in your favor. Then, slowly, the terms change. The attention becomes intermittent, which makes you work harder for it. The promises are broken, but you're invested now, so you forgive. The mirroring now, the mirroring was always fake, but you've built your identity around being the person they seemed to see. You're trapped in a sunk cost fallacy disguised as love. Sorry, but more exploitation isn't but most exploitation isn't that dramatic. It is more subtle. It is a relationship where one person's career always takes priority, where one person's emotions are always more important, where one person's free time is protected while the other is consumed by household management. It is a marriage where she works full time and does 70% of childcare and manages all family social obligations while he focuses on his career and considers changing a diaper helping out. The exchange is massively unequal, but it is normalized. It's what millions of couples consider traditional or even fair. Ask each partner individually if the division of labor is equitable. He will say, yes, of course, because he doesn't even see most of what she does. She will say, well, it's complicated. She's exhausted, resentful, sometimes enraged. But she also loves her children, wants a stable home, fears the social and economic consequences of divorce. So she stays, and the extraction continues. This is the dark heart of the exchange economy. The ways unequal transactions get dressed up as law, duty, sacrifice, or tradition. But here is where the story gets hopeful, because some relationships actually pull off the alchemy. They start with exchange. His money for her beauty, his youth for her wisdom, his social case, his social ease for her intellectual beauty depths, and they transform it into something genuinely mutual. Consider the curious. Mary and Pierre met as scientists, collaborated as equals, shared the Nobel Prize for their discovery of radium. When Pierre died, Mary continued the work, won a second Nobel Prize, became one of the most celebrated scientists in history. Their partnership wasn't transactionless. They exchanged ideas, lab time, intellectual labor, emotional support. But the exchange was multiplicative. Together, they discovered things neither could have alone. Or look at long term couples who have been together 40, 50, 60 years. The initial exchanges that brought them together, his earning potential, her homemaking, his stability, her beauty, become almost irrelevant. They've grown together so long they've become partially matched. His thoughts complete as sentences. Our skills have become his. They are no longer two traders calculating exchange rates. They are a unified entity that exceeds either individual. This is what the best love does. It transforms exchange into emergence. You don't just gain access to your partner's qualities, you internalize them, develop them in yourself, become larger than you were. She wasn't socially grateful when they met, but spending decades with him, she learned. He wasn't emotionally fluent, but she taught him slowly, patiently, over thousands of conversations. Neither of them is the same person they were when they started. The relationship didn't just balance their initial currencies, it created new capacities in both. This is the difference between extraction and expansion. In extractive relationships, the sum never exceeds the parts. One person gives, the other takes, and over time, both diminish. In expansive relationships, the partnership creates new value that neither could generate alone. So, what does ethical exchange look like? First, honesty. Not brutal, transactional honesty that kills romance, but clear eyed acknowledgement of what each person brings and needs. I need someone who can help me feel less socially anxious. You need someone who engages with ideas deeply. Can we give each other those things? Second, generosity. The willingness to give more than the strict balance requires, trusting that over a long enough timeline, generosity creates its own returns. Not scorekeeping, every dish washed, and emotional conversation initiated, but a general orientation toward abundance rather than scarcity. Third, mutual growth. The commitment to ensuring both partners emerge enlarged rather than diminished. Asking regularly, is this relationship making you more yourself or less? Is it expanding your capacities or depleting them? Fourth, visibility of invisible labor, making explicit the work that usually goes unacknowledged. Emotional labor, domestic work, social coordination. Hey, honey, I see what you're doing. It matters. It's valuable. I want you to know I see you. Thank you. And finally, the humility to recognize that even the best relationships involve exchange. We are not escaping the economy, we are participating in it consciously, ethically, with awareness of power dynamics and commitment to fairness. Here's what I want us to take from this: love is an economy, but it doesn't have to be a cruel one. The currencies we trade, beauty, knowledge, youth, social grace, emotional fluency, reproductive capacity, are real. The exchanges we negotiate, security for care, status for validation, access for intimacy, are happening whether we acknowledge them or not. But awareness changes everything. When you see the ledgers clearly, you can make sure the balance. When you understand what you're trading, you can do it consciously rather than unconsciously. When you recognize the power dynamics, you can work to equalize them. The alternative to conscious exchange isn't transcendent love untainted by economics. The alternative is unconscious exchange, where exploitation hides behind romantic rhetoric, where inequality festers unacknowledged, where one person slowly drains the other while calling it devotion. The question is not whether your relationship involves exchange. It does. The question is whether that exchange is extractive or generative, whether it diminishes both partners or enlarges them, whether the ledger balances or whether one person is being slowly depleted to feed the other's needs. And here is the genuinely beautiful thing: when the exchange is conscious, equitable, and generous, it stops feeling like exchange at all. It becomes collaboration, co creation, mutual becoming. You don't think about what you're getting from your partner because what you're getting is becoming more yourself, not through extraction of their qualities, but through the expansion of your own capacities in response to theirs. This is the alchemy. This is what transforms transaction into transformation. Two people meet across the chasm of differences. They each bring currencies, some valuable, some not, some obvious, some hidden. They begin to exchange, cautiously at first, testing the terms, and if they are lucky, if they are generous, if they are conscious, the exchange becomes irrelevant. The ledger dissolves. What remains is something that neither could have created alone: a partnership that makes both partners more than they were, that expands rather than contracts, that multiplies rather than divides. Love begins as